see, in the year 1972, the mother had said in one of her conversations that in the next 50 years, the whole world, those who are receptive, will be absorbed by Sri Aurobindo's thought. And this is the year 2022. So you can imagine her foresight, that the world, those who are receptive, it's not that a numerically whole world, those who are receptive will be absorbed by Sri Aurobindo's thought. It's a very important message. So what we do understand about Sri Aurobindo's thought, that is what we are doing at the Institute of Human Study here in Hyderabad, Sri Aurobindo Centre for Advanced Research at Puducherry, and there are many other institutions which are trying to spread this Sri Aurobindo's thought. So that is, if I can say, the bounden duty of all Aurobindonian communities, societies, schools, centers, individuals, because that itself, and then she added one more word, one more sentence. She said, those who are already introduced are the pioneers. So if we call ourselves Aurobindonians in any sense, I think it's mandatory almost to spread his vision, to spread his thought. And Sri Aurobindo's thought is not unilinear, as most of you know. It is so many-sided that it's even difficult to grasp it, to look around. Which one is he? In fact, from Sakar, from Sri Aurobindo Centre for Advanced Research in Puducherry, we have launched a project inviting different speakers across India and the world to take up one aspect of Sri Aurobindo. And we are planning to bring out a book on that. And you'll be surprised that 24 aspects of Sri Aurobindo have been discovered. So we think he's only a philosopher or a psychologist or this or that. But that is what is Sri Aurobindo, a multi-dimensional personality. And because of that multi-dimensional personality, he goes beyond our mental ken. Our mind is used to understand one side. We call him a philosopher or a man of literature or this or that. But he goes beyond, and that is why he is most confused. He means people are confused about Sri Aurobindo. So they even drag him to their own philosophy or political views aside. But I would say it's better not to pull him to any one side, because he doesn't belong to any one side. He belongs to all. He belongs to all the nations. He does not belong to India alone. He does not belong to Hinduism alone. He is beyond. And that is why we at the Institute of Human Study, with the help of Prajna Bharati and Samvit Kendra, and others who wanted to participate in this celebration Sri Aurobindo. You see, this word celebration Sri Aurobindo has a particular connotation. Somebody wrote to me saying, Anand Bhai, are you not making a mistake? Is it not celebrating Sri Aurobindo's birthday? I said, no, it is celebration Sri Aurobindo. Because it was in 2004, I was at Nainital giving one of my discourses there. And one fine afternoon, when I was having my usual nap, I suddenly got up with somebody telling in my ears, a loud and clear voice, which was obviously the mother's. I heard the word celebration Savitri. And what it meant I didn't know. But afterwards, when I started arranging for the celebration, then I came to know the meaning, how the mother herself took up the celebration of not just the book Savitri. The whole spirit became, everybody started coming on their own. So that is the spirit I wanted to capture in these words, in this phrase, celebration Sri Aurobindo. So this year, of course we started the celebration last year, 15th of August. So we have concentrated both the parent institution, the Institute of Human Study, and the sister institutions, Sakar as we say, to celebrate Sri Aurobindo in the best manner we could. Here at the Institute, we have taken participation from the schools and the individuals, and in which many of you here sitting here have come forward. Because to celebrate Sri Aurobindo is not an occasion, it's a privilege. It's not going to somebody's marriage anniversary or birthday anniversary and take a gift. To celebrate means to participate in his consciousness. So I take this opportunity not as an occasion, but as a blessing. So this is what Mother herself said, that in 50 years the whole world would be absorbed. You see the word absorbed. It's not a simple word. And those of you who are already introduced to him are among the first ones. So friends, this is what Sri Aurobindo is. And this is our privilege, and this is how he has given us his Ashirwad. On the 15th of August, when we went to his room at the Puducherry ashram, there was a card given to us, written Sri Aurobindo in his own handwriting and Ashirwad in his own handwriting. So friends, I have come here to share with you the blessings of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother for this celebration. Well, I have not chosen a topic. You cannot choose a topic from Sri Aurobindo. So many topics are there, so many in his vast ocean, wave upon wave come up, and you do not know what to speak on. However, as this topic has been given almost like Sri Aurobindo and India, I wonder if there is something called Sri Aurobindo and India. Because long back the Mother has told us once, because it is quite unbelievable for many of you here, or for most of you here, because you will not believe what I am saying. Mother said first, India has got its freedom because Sri Aurobindo came upon earth. Because there was a conversation between independence and Sri Aurobindo's birthday. She said, no, first speak about Sri Aurobindo's birthday, because it is he who brought in the possibility of freedom of the country. So that is the real attitude, that's the real interpretation. So that's why I'm telling you, I would rather say Sri Aurobindo's India, not Sri Aurobindo and India. Sri Aurobindo and India, there are many thousands of people that can be in this audience or in the past or in the present who would say X and India, Y and India, and Z and India. But here, it is Sri Aurobindo's India. Why am I calling that? Is it because I'm a devotee, I'm a scholar in Sri Aurobindo? No. Of course, this partial, yes. But there's something beyond that. Because here was a man who once wrote to his wife in 1905. He was still not yet come to Puducherry, he was still in Baroda, or he just joined Calcutta maybe. He wrote, I know I have the strength to deliver this fallen race. It is not physical strength. I'm not going to fight with a sword or gun, but the strength of knowledge. The feeling is not new in me. It is not of today. I was born with it. Remember that word? I was born with it. It is in my very marrow. God sent me to earth to accomplish this great mission. That's a sentence we can never forget. Sri Aurobindo writing in 1905, he had just begun his political career. But he says, God sent me to earth to accomplish this great mission. And what was this great mission? Was to liberate India and later on liberate humanity. But both the liberations were based on the Sanatana Dharma, imparted to him by no less than Sri Krishna himself. At a critical time in Kurukshetra war, Sri Krishna had told Arjuna, the same ancient knowledge of yoga, which is the supreme secret, I am today revealing unto you, because you are my friend as well as my devotee, who can understand this transcendental wisdom. Most of you would recollect. This is from chapter 4, Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, at a crucial time of faith, Sri Aurobindo had implored, give me thy Adesh. He asked Sri Krishna, give me thy Adesh. I do not know what work to do or how to do it. Give me a message. Very similar to what Arjuna had said when he puts it on the Gandhiva and he says, I do not know what to do. You tell me. A similar sentence comes in the mouth of Sri Aurobindo also. To which Sri Krishna replied, I have given you a work, and it is to help to uplift this nation. So very clear. A work to uplift this nation. Something has been shown to you in this year of seclusion, something about which you had your doubts, and it is the truth of the Hindu religion. It is this religion that I am rising up before the world. It is this that I have perfected and developed through the rishis, saints and avatars. This is all Sri Krishna himself telling Sri Aurobindo in the Alipur jail. It is this religion that I am rising up before the world. It is this that I have perfected and developed through the rishis, saints and avatars. And now it is going forth to do my work among the nations. This is the Sanatana Dharma. When you go forth, this is Sri Krishna telling Sri Aurobindo, when you go forth, speak to your nation always this word, that it is for the Sanatana Dharma that they arise. It is for the world and not for themselves that they arise. You see, I'm repeating this sentence again and again because Sri Aurobindo has written many a time the same message that India must stand for the world. India's freedom is meant for the world's future. So you can see where is the source of this sentence and this inspiration. It is in Sri Krishna's words themselves. This then was the divine command that Sri Aurobindo had received from Sri Krishna, and he plunged into the freedom movement of India. He became an instrument of Shakti that had gone forth and entered into the people. He fought, like Sri Krishna in Kurukshetra, a dharma yuddha, and not that of a passive resistance. He wrote to a friend in 1914, Sri Aurobindo wrote to a friend in 1914, you must understand that my mission is not to create sannyasis, but to call back the souls of the strong to the Leela of Krishna and Kali. Every ascetic movement since the time of Buddha has left India weaker. You cannot enforce one ideal of the country without weakening the other. You cannot take away the best souls from life and yet leave life stronger and greater. Renunciation of ego, acceptance of God in life is the yoga I teach, no other renunciation. Renunciation of ego, acceptance of God in life is the yoga I teach, no other renunciation. It is thus with the spirit of Krishna and Kali, knowledge and power, that he entered the modern Kurukshetra to defeat the enemy, the British colonialists. He laid out a program on the pragmatic level to rejuvenate the mighty outborn body of the ancient mother. He felt in the very bones, as it were, that it would be a tragic irony of fate if India were to throw away her spiritual heritage at the very moment when in the rest of the world there is more and more a turning towards her spiritual health and a saving life. This must not and will not happen. This was his understanding of India's future. So that is what he says, that I'm not here to create sannyasis, but to create those heroic warriors who will bring back the great India's past. His mission was to reawaken India to her true self. In one word, a spiritual reawakening. To bring back ancient spirituality and apply it to life was the first necessity of the world's future, according to Sri Aurobindo. But here, when you are speaking about the renaissance or the rebirth or the resurgence of this country, what is the first step? It is to bring back the spirituality. You may wonder why Sri Aurobindo is speaking about bringing back spirituality. You may be thinking that India is full of spirituality. I'm afraid it is not. We have more or less the outer layer of spirituality, but we have gotten more into the religiosity, not spirituality. And we are becoming more and more deeper and deeper into the religiosity, leaving the kernel of spirituality. So Sri Aurobindo says we have to bring back the true spiritual thing. But his idea of spirituality has nothing to do with ascetic withdrawal, right? Sri Aurobindo himself has nothing to do with the ascetic withdrawal or contempt or disgust of secular things. Now this is one part. But the more important part in this revival of the spiritual thing that could be applicable, as you would say, is the next sentence where he says, there is to me nothing secular. All human activity is for me a thing to be included in a complete spiritual life. So I would say, amongst all the things that we need to get back or revive, is that forget about the present chorus of people singing about the secular India, or the India should be secular. Sri Aurobindo says, this is the first step in the resurgence in modern India to get the right understanding of our country's ethos. The modern ideas of taking India towards secularism is something false and misleading. This is not Sri Aurobindo. I wrote it there. Hinduism, to quote Sri Aurobindo, has left out no part of life as a thing secular and foreign to the religious and spiritual life. This is something we need to understand thoroughly. You see, there has become a fashion to say that we are becoming a secular country and we should remain secular. That has been the first impact of the American society, the American thought, American mind, to turn a society into secular. But Sri Aurobindo writes clearly that Hinduism has left out no part of life as a thing secular and foreign to the religious and spiritual life. Imagine Sri Aurobindo and the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Gita, where they believe that there is spirit and matter are one and the same. How can we ever think that secularism is something different that we said? How can we think that spirituality and religion and Sanatana Dharma should be devoid of ordinary life? You see, this is the deepest philosophy. Sri Aurobindo has given us a new mantra that all life is yoga. Even including politics also is yoga. Why not this question of schools, education? How can we separate, in India at least, which for the past centuries and centuries has wedded spirituality into life? The whole attempt of India has been how to make life, how to transform life into a constant spiritual battle, a kind of a religious battle, a kind of a spiritual path. So here, at least in this country, this slogan of secularism is purely a political slogan imitating the West. For Sri Aurobindo, it doesn't stand ground at all. Because this is the basis of our Indian culture, where we say that Brahman is all. Brahman is there in matter, Brahman is there in Sangam, in every atom Brahman is there. So when we speak of such a philosophy, how can we say that, we are secular, that means the religion and spirituality has nothing to do with our ordinary life, or political life, or social life, or marriages, or education. That's absolutely out of the way. It is something false. So for Sri Aurobindo and the Vedic Rishis and the Upanishadic Pandits, this cannot be true. Where, even the Isha Upanishad, as most of you remember, the very first thing where it says, all this world is verily imbibed by the Brahman. So when we have these deepest teachings, how can we again start the slogan of secularism? So I would say that we have to bring back the right understanding of our Indian culture to say, no, we are not a secular country. We do not want to divide religion and spirituality from life. In fact, we want to spiritualize life itself. We may have forgotten, we may have gone astray. But what did our ancients tell us? That life is full of divinity. At present, it is full of problems. It is full of ignorance, full of dangers. But it doesn't mean our foundations are something wrong. So, Sri Aurobindo would be very much against those who say that India is secular. It is not. India is spiritual. In fact, I will give you another quotation later. So we can see that we have to go on a path which integrates life into a spiritual thing. We cannot separate. This has been one of the first hammer blows from the Western influence, to divide life into spiritual and non-spiritual, into religious and non-religious. And that is how the division has come in our society. Those who want the world is true, those who say the world is not true, those who say it's an illusion, those who say it's not an illusion. So these divisive forces are what is making our country weak. So Sri Aurobindo is the grand synthesis, where it says, no, all is Brahman, all life can be made life divine. So this is his challenge, to make life into life divine. So the first challenge he has spoken about is secularism. The second one, the second step, as I would say, about the question of Renaissance. Some of you may have already read about it, where Sri Aurobindo speaks about that the youth of India should learn to think on all subjects, to think independently, fruitfully, going to the heart of things. Because he has said, India's poverty is not its material poverty. Its poverty is purely because of lack of original thinking. Of course, this was an age when Sri Aurobindo had written almost 100 years back and more, that people were imitating the West completely. Almost 90% of the thinking was Western. Today, over the last 100 years or so, especially after we got some independence, after some decades, we have started to think about ourselves independently. But otherwise, what Sri Aurobindo had said really stands true, that we lack original thinking. We are great imitators. In another quotation also, I mean, there's so much is written that we are easy goers. Whatever is easy at hand, we adapt that. We never take the trouble to think for ourselves or find out our own solutions. We copy and imitate. So that's why Sri Aurobindo said we suffer a thought phobia, and not necessarily that because we have got materially lesser things, we are less comfortable, is a poor country. No. So he would say, and also I would say that what has happened today, the great immense progress that India is making on the material level, and people are coming up, what all the projects are there, projects are there, Think India, Made in India, and all these programs. It is quite a miracle. I mean, what is happening is almost a magical thing. Because in those days, in the times of Sri Aurobindo, he had written somewhere that the mental training provided in our universities were meager in quantity and worthless in quality. Imagine if this is the state of the universities then. Well, I do not want to pronounce more because I know there's a professor sitting across me. Because what is the status of the universities today? And then we have provided PVC here, and I cannot pronounce against universities. Yes, there are number of universities has increased. But how much is this? Were universities, it says, were meager in quantity and worthless in quality. Because those times there was much more imitation of the West, of Europe. But today, is it better? Well, I know, but I do not utter. Not from this dais here. It's for all of you to think it over. I mean, almost sometimes it's better said, silence speaks more than words. So he says, Sri Aurobindo says that it cannot come, this kind of a national, he speaks of a national yajna, speaking of a national education. You see, this question of a national education or a national yajna, he says it cannot come by any extension or imitation of the systems of the existing universities with its radically false principles, its vicious and mechanical methods, its dead, alive, routine tradition. Only a new spirit and a new body born from the heart of the nation and full of the light and hope of its researchers can create it. So this is, of course, his message. There's plenty of things to read about the writings on national education, etc. But inspired by his writings on national education and his theory of integral education, the national education policy, recently we got that, has tried to implement something of that. But I would say, very humbly, it's still a tinkering. Great efforts have been made because I know on the level of India's vastness and variety, it's difficult to make too many changes. But still, a change has come in the light of Mother Sri Aurobindo's philosophy of education. But I just hope that we do not delay again implementing this philosophy. At least some beginning would be made towards an ideal education. It is too far. But at least something that we see in Sri Aurobindo and in the Mother also. So this NEP that we are talking about so much is a good beginning, but there's a long way to go. And then the third one, as I spoke about, the second one was the intellectual, first was the spiritual. Third one, Sri Aurobindo in his writings talks about the vital rejuvenation. But the vital means the emotional. You see, this emotional resurgence Now, what do you understand by the emotional and the vital desires? But there is included all this question of arts and sciences and arts and your dances, your music, your paintings, your literature and all that. And I see, of course, we have a long gap of 100 years and more since the time Sri Aurobindo wrote this. Things have improved, I do not deny that. Especially the emotional vital life has improved a lot, the amount of creativity that has come into the country. And yet, I would say this is not being given importance on the level of school education. Because you may have drawing and dancing and all that, yes, one does have. But as an ideal, we should see that emotional balance must be there in the child. And so Sri Aurobindo would say, this vital education or the new philosophy we should have, this vitality as we say. Because Sri Aurobindo believed in one philosophy. He said, indeed, without this opulent vitality and opulent intellectuality, India could never have done so much as she did with the spiritual tendencies. It's a great error to suppose that spirituality flourishes best in an impoverished soil. It is when the race has lived most richly and thought most profoundly that spirituality finds its heights and its depths and its constant and many-sided fruition. This is his fundamental belief. Because you see, as he gave the example in the book, that the Mount Himalayas, that is the Everest, is not standing alone. It is so high because its base is so vast. That is a beautiful image he has given us, that the higher that you have the consciousness of the peak of the Himalayas, the broader is the base. Had the base been smaller and narrow, they couldn't have been Mount Everest. What does it imply? That our life must be full of this joy, creativity, vitality, energy, if we want to have a great heights of spirituality. So he compares saying, if you have had great rishis, great avatars, great Mahatmas, we have had these great heights of spirituality that the world doesn't even know about. Because we have had a fantastic creativity on the life level. Look at our architecture, our paintings, our dances, our music, which have come from parampara. It's not 100 years or 200 years, parampara, it's been thousands of years. So Sri Aurobindo's main argument is, people should not think that India is only a high drive philosophy, at least not in the present days. We have already shown to the world what kind of a creativity we can take up. Give us a challenge on the industrial level, on this level, on the solar energy level. India has taken it up and we have a tremendous vital activity. But this also ensures that any spiritual reawakening that we want to do, Sri Aurobindo wants to do, is a complete possibility. Because we must remember that spirituality cannot grow in an empty space. It requires a great force and energy of life element. And today, thanks to technology, that our life element has become very rich, extremely rich. It's spreading and wide, it's capturing every common man, rich man, poor man. Doesn't matter. But we must prepare a beautiful, strong material base. You call it army, you call it navy, you call it industry, you call it whatever you want to. But when in the light of Sri Aurobindo, the stronger the material base, the higher would be the spiritual future. So what Sri Aurobindo is speaking about, the new future of the country must be spiritual. For that, preparations are already underway. It's not something that things are happening haphazard. It's not a question of a political awakening. There is a national spirit behind it. So Sri Aurobindo would say that thing is happening, and Sri Aurobindo does strongly support this material growth, whatever you may call technological growth. But Sri Aurobindo had written in one place, there is not at random things are happening. Because people have the habit of saying that we have, the things of people do criticize, saying, oh, we are in a materialistic world, our values have become so very materialistic, and then the technology and all that. But on the contrary, the preparation of a material base is mandatory for a spiritual rise. Therefore, let us not lament on what's happening, thinking, oh, something we are on the off the track. Not at all. This is how evolution progresses. It prepares the ground, and then suddenly you will see the dawn of a new spirituality. So we keep speaking about a new world order and all that is big words, it's all old words. There is no world order. There is a divine order that is maintained by the divine himself. And you see, Sri Aurobindo again writes in one of his beautiful book, The Life Divine, that this question of spirituality, etc., will not come over a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades. What are we at present? We are maybe religious, fine, but true spirituality will come in stages. What does it mean? That first, the mind must be spiritualized. It's not that overnight we become saints and sannyasins and sadhus and then sadhaks of integral yoga. Nobody can become. He says basically what evolution, nature is doing is preparing us stage by stage, physically, vitally, mentally, and then spiritually. So at present humanity, entire humanity in whatever shape, be it here or there, in all the political complexities that we are having between Russia and China and Ukraine and America and India, everywhere. Sri Aurobindo believes that first of all, our minds must become spiritual. Until then, spirituality, the age of spirituality will not dawn. Because it's the nature's way, it prepares physical, vital, mental. So what all we are doing, what Sri Aurobindo calls it as a spiritual philosophy. So all that we are doing today, and that's what I started with my talk saying, when the mother said that whole of humanity will be absorbed by Sri Aurobindo's thought. So that Sri Aurobindo's thought is the spiritual philosophy. So we are all being absorbed, means the mind is getting prepared. So the more we read about the spiritual philosophy, not only of Sri Aurobindo, take it on, it's the open thing, but let your minds be sunk with this new philosophy. Mother uses the word absorbed. So we have to really read it so that the minds become, absorbed and they really absorb this new thought. So when the mind of humanity is sufficiently absorbed, then there will be the new spiritual age. There are always, examples, exceptions, that great men, great saints, great people, spiritual people are born in every age. But they are the precursors, they are the advanced, are unadvanced. Those who lead the way. But Sri Aurobindo would say, nature is not interested in producing a few exceptions of great masters, great devotees, great mirabais. No. These are all examples of the way. Nature is always interested in taking humanity with it. So we'll see that this is how you look at this progress of humanity, because there are different levels. And now the last thing, Sri Aurobindo writes in his book, Resurgence in India, that there is the last level of India's preparation, that is on the physical level. What we mean by the physical level is the polity. And here, of course, the things we discussed, many things can be discussed, but I'll give you 1 or 2 main ideas given by Sri Aurobindo. This is his favorite, most important sentence. Spirituality is India's only politics. I mean, a sentence which we cannot understand. It's too vast. Because politics and spirituality, they never went together in our common understanding. In fact, the mother would say somewhere that politics is the last thing to be spiritualized. I mean, you can have the emotions, your mind, and all that can be spiritualized, but your art, your education, a lot of it are teachers, all that can be spiritualized, but politics is the last thing. And here Sri Aurobindo is telling, spirituality is India's, not politics, only politics. I mean, it took me time even to understand what it means. He says the fulfillment of the Sanatana Dharma is only Swaraj. I mean, he uses it so beautifully, the only. There's nothing more, nothing better. The fulfillment of the Sanatana Dharma. You see, this word Sanatana Dharma has been haunting us right from sentence 1. When he says it's a power of knowledge I'm going to use for delivering this human race. So this is the Sanatana Dharma that Sri Krishna taught Arjuna, that Sri Krishna told Sri Aurobindo, that this is what you have to give to the world and take it across. I'm giving you freedom so that you, Aurobindo Ghosh, whatever the name was at the time, you take it abroad. So here Sri Aurobindo writes, I have no doubt we shall have to go through our parliamentary period in order to get rid of the notion of Western democracy by seeing in practice how helpless it is to make nations blessed. Will you come straight to the point of your parliamentary democracy? The Sri Aurobindo, of course, was not at all for the parliamentary democracy. We take pride in saying, oh, India is a democratic country and we have got democracy and then we are the birthplace of democracy. Fine, it was there philosophically and in our ancient times. But democracy as a philosophy is fine. But in practice, he says, I have no doubt we shall have to go through the parliamentary period in order to get rid of the notion of Western democracy by seeing in practice how helpless it is to make nations blessed. India is passing really through the first stages of a sort of national yoga. In the parliamentary form would be hardly suitable for our people. This was he wrote long back, I mean in the early 40s. Parliamentary government is not suited to India. There may be one, now you see he has given us hints also how to do it. There may be one Rashtrapati at the top with considerable powers so as to secure a continuity of policy and an assembly representative of the nation. The provinces will combine into a federation united at the top, leaving ample scope to the local bodies to make laws according to the local problems. But you see, he has given a thought to the parliamentary system also. What should be the parliamentary system, parliamentary democracy suitable for India? I'm sure many of you have read here, I know our great Makarand is here, who has done a lot of study of the politics, of the parliamentary, the polity and all that. But what is important is to see that this parliamentary democracy that has been given out to us in those early days has been done in a hurry, almost not taking into consideration our own Indian ethos. It has also been something taken from the different countries. Just like our national system of education, there is no national system, but just that the system of education was given to us by Macaulay in order to enslave us. You see, the whole philosophy of education was to enslave us. And after the freedom movement, after we got liberation freedom in 1947, for decades together, our entire philosophy of education was to enslave us. To make our children mark up the things, not necessary to understand anything. So what did our students become? And we are all products of the same system. That we have never been taught to think for ourselves. That the Sri says, think yourselves. So education, before education, after independence has been the same thing, a rotten thing, not to tell us about the truth of India's culture, India's civilization, India's history, all borrowed from the Western eyes, what they have written. So this is what Sri Aurobindo is telling us. Similarly, even the parliamentary democracy, the constitution and whatever you want to call, it has been done not really based on India's past, India's culture, India's needs, Indian ethos. So at least now slowly things are coming back. And he says, let us think about once again. So it's not that the constitution cannot be changed, should not be changed. There's nothing divinely ordained about it. It's all humanly made. But it's unsuitable for India. That's why Sri Aurobindo is time and again telling us that it is not suited to India. A very straightforward verdict. He says something, I believe in something which might be called social democracy. I hold that India, having a spirit of her own and a governing temperament proper to her own civilization, should in politics, as in everything else, strike out her own original path. You see, we have got enough hints. If those who are political scientists, or political thinkers, they should be able to work out something on this. I am not a political thinker, I do not know anything about it. But he has given out enough hints to bring out any system suitable to us. But you may say, in the present form, there is quite an impossibility. People cannot change this political democracy that's happening in India. But long back I remember, when it was with Indira Gandhiji or V Giri, I don't know, somebody had come to ashram to see the mother. Mother had given one message. There is time that there should be no parties in India. That means there should be a national government. Sri Aurobindo also spoke about this change. Mother insisted there ought to be no political parties. The government must be composed of the best and women and talent picked from across the parties. Imagine in the early 70s itself, what Sri Aurobindo wrote much earlier than 50s. Already his vision was there. Because you see what is happening to the political parties today. I mean, we are, there's so much of competition and, killing each other and all the killing that are happening. So he had the vision to say, first of all, political democracy is no good. Secondly, this party system is no good. There should be a national government in the center. But you would say, sir, isn't it utopian? Yes, it's all utopian. If you see the present situation, it is utopian indeed. But all the vision that Sri Aurobindo is speaking about is utopian in a way. Because we are far, far from the thought itself. And all that Sri Aurobindo is speaking about does imply a change of consciousness, a rethinking on the intellectual level, on the vital level, on the physical level, the different steps that he has given us. And then of course, I had no time to bring in more changes because he has thought about the economics of the country, about the agricultural problems of the farmers. All these things he did it in 100, 120 years back. And India, with all due respect to the political philosophers, with the education ministers of the past, nobody ever brought Sri Aurobindo forward. And my friend here, the PVC of Hyderabad University, he says that I have studied Sri Aurobindo, but we did not have any literature on Sri Aurobindo because he did not write anything in Hindi or in English or Hindi. So that was our sad situation. Our education ministers were eager to bring out something from the West. So unfortunately, Sri Aurobindo was pushed behind the curtain and he was not to be revealed. But this is a God-apportioned time that the 150th anniversary is there, that the world is celebrating. But maybe you do not get so many celebrations and the notices of WhatsApp, etc. But you see, all over the world, people are celebrating Sri Aurobindo. And when the mother declared, yes, it is happening, people are getting absorbed, thanks to again technology. And the way after Corona technology has come forward, it's almost a kind of a divine will that how to make this universal consciousness. Otherwise, all of us were in this Institute of Human Study or little pockets of centers and knowledge. But today, suddenly, Sri Aurobindo has gone across the world. Across, there's a collaboration. We are getting a kind of a collection of all of them, and then we see there are hundreds and hundreds of people working for Sri Aurobindo across the country and the world. So this is the time when Sri Aurobindo has been brought forward by a divine providence. And even the government of India, as we see here, Ministry of Culture, is helping, trying to bring forward Sri Aurobindo's message. It is difficult, but every difficult work, as the mother would say, because it is difficult, it will happen. Because it's not yet happened, it doesn't mean it will not happen. But again, friends, I must tell you that this year there's definitely a special force. Offshore, there are plenty of forces happening against also. But if we are, as the mother said, if we are open in our mind, he will come to us. He will come to us, means his consciousness will come to us. So let the change begin within each one of us. We don't have to make big things, but at least let it begin with ourselves. And Sri Aurobindo would say that there are all the problems, but the soul of Hinduism languishes in an unfit body. Break the mold that the soul may live. If the body were young, adaptable, fit, the liberated soul might use it. But it is this decrepit, full of ill health and impurity. It must be changed, not by the spirit of Western iconoclasm, which destroys the soul with the body, but by national ego, by national yoga. So Sri Aurobindo has full faith that the body, that India's body, which was rotting in the times of the freedom movement before that, is slowly changing. And it will change. And he does predict that unity of India will come back. In his 1947 message, he says, India is free but not yet united. But subsequently, he says, India's unity will come back. It will go through lots of problems, but it will come back. But it will not come back by wishful thinking. People have to work hard within themselves, in the communities, in trying to see the unity is there. You know, we have so many clashes on all levels trying to see there's never any unity. But Sri Aurobindo is of the view where people pointed out to him all these are happening. He said, I'm not blind to all these things. The mother and me, he writes, that we have gone through all these problems. And in spite of that, I say, India will be united and one. And so when his 1947 message, he gave the famous prediction that the division between India and Pakistan will go and must go. We may be thinking again it's a European thing, but will it happen? Well, it may not happen in your lifetime, in my lifetime. At least it is not my lifetime. There are many youngsters here. But things will happen. How will it happen? By a miracle. But what kind of a miracle? Don't you remember the Berlin Wall? Well, why can't it repeat? Yesterday on 15th of August, I see this march, what is it called? The withdrawal, March of Retreat or something, near the border. Wagah border. Suddenly something like that. We have a border there. I saw those both sides army people making beautiful dances and postures and all that. And even I was told that they are giving sweets to each other. Indian soldiers are giving sweets to the other side. It is a possibility. It's only the politicians who are stopping it. Culturally we are back. So just like it happened in Berlin Wall, our walls can break down. And there could be what Sri Aurobindo has predicted, the division will and must go. It will go. That's what Sri Aurobindo calls the united thing. It's not just having a unity, psychological unity. It will begin with the psychological unity, of course, but it will happen. So Sri Aurobindo's vision of India and Sri Aurobindo's India is one, as everybody has mentioned, it will be the guru of the world. If she chooses, remember the word, India can be guru of the world if she chooses. Why if she chooses? Because if she doesn't choose it consciously and make efforts towards that, there could be catastrophes, there could be other things happening. But Sri Aurobindo has the divine vision of this entire evolution. In this evolutionary march, he has seen the place of each country. And here is my last quote, in a magnificent vision of India, where he says, God always keeps for himself. Try to understand this. God always keeps for himself a chosen country in which the higher knowledge is through all chances and dangers by the few or the many continually preserved, and for the present, in this Chaitanya Yuga at least, that country is India. Wonderful. I mean, when you read that, you forget all your sorrows, all your divisions, all your religious problems, bigotry. I mean, this is not something a politician who can write this. It's not a saint who can write this. It's not a vibhuti who can write this. It's an avatar who can write this. Who has a vision of the past, present and the future. Who has a global vision, seeing from above. He is kind of knowing, he knows what God himself is making. God always keeps for himself a chosen country in which the higher knowledge is through all chances and dangers, by the few or the many, continually preserved. Please try to understand. That higher knowledge is continually preserved, and for the present, in this Chaitanya Yuga at least, that country is India. Whenever he chooses to take the full pleasure of ignorance, of the dualities, of strife and wrath and tears and weakness and selfishness, the tamasic and rajasic pleasures of the play of the Kali in short, he dims the knowledge in India and puts her down into weakness and degradation, so that she may retire into herself and not interfere with this movement of Leela. It is not a prophecy. It is a vision. It is as if Sri Aurobindo is seeing the eonic evolution of the countries. He says Chaitanya Yuga, he must be knowing about other yugas also. In this Chaitanya Yuga is India, and he says whenever God wants to have the tears and weakness in the world, he withdraws the knowledge from India. So you see how India is the instrument of the divine. He says, he dims the knowledge in India and puts her down into weakness and degradation, so that she may retire into herself and not interfere with this movement. When he wants to rise up from the mud and Narayana in man, to become once again mighty and wise and blissful, then he once more pours out the knowledge in India and raises her up, so that she may give the knowledge with its necessary consequences of might, wisdom and bliss to the whole world. You see, it's as if the whole world is being managed by this instrument of the divine called India Bharat. So when you want the world to suffer, go through suffering not for the sake of suffering, but for suffering for the sake of purification, for some growth. He uses India to take away its knowledge. Because if India is always at the peak of its knowledge, the world will never suffer. So when he wants to have knowledge, pours out the knowledge on India. And then when there is a contradicted movement of knowledge, the yogins in India withdraw from the world and practice yoga for their own liberation and delight and for the liberation of a few disciples. When there is the contracted movement of knowledge, The yogis in India withdrawn from the world and practiced for their own liberation and delight, or for the liberation of a few disciples. But when the movement of knowledge again expands and the soul of India expands with it, they come forth once more and work in the world and for the world. Yogis like Janaka, Ajatasastru and Kartavirya once more sit on the thrones of the world and govern the nations. So that is the prophecy. That get back your knowledge. Once again, let India flower in those great ancient knowledge of the great, the synthetic knowledge, where there's no division of religions, where there's no division of castes and creeds. There's oneness. There's no question of secularism and all these political slogans. So Sri Aurobindo is telling us, let India revive the spiritual awakening, and you will see all those great men we thought of, Janaka and Ajatasastru, etc., they will come back in a different form. But India has the future, or India is the future. There's no question about it. So this is Sri Aurobindo's India. It's not Sri Aurobindo and India. So this kind of a vision no one else has given us, including many yogis and Swamijis and great Purushas. So this is one of those quotations from Sri Aurobindo which really thrills us and tells us here is the hope. So in spite of all that is happening in our country, friends, have faith that we are born in a country that has the future, that has the secret for the world. So what all great people have said, even Swamiji has said about the great nations, this is it. And that's why we are inspired to work for this person, for this vision. So this 75th anniversary, all the slogans that we are having, is one thing is good. Amrit Mahotsav, etc. Yes, it's good. On a public and a national level, we should do that. But keep in your heart one little thing. What Sri Aurobindo has said, that I look upon the country as my mother. So can all this quotation, all these things about Sri Aurobindo, give you one sentence? Can you utter in your dreams and when you go back home and say, India is my mother? Just don't utter the word Bharat Mata, all these big slogans. You can do your Janagana Mana and all that, fine. But Sri Aurobindo said, I adore her. She is my mother. Because in all our human relationships, it's the mother's relationship that's most sacred, for which we die, we suffer, we do everything. The sons and the children will do everything for the sake of the mother. So that is Sri Aurobindo, who adored India as a mother. And he lived for her. But then, remember what Lord Krishna himself had said, Sri Aurobindo, that he said that you have to take this message of Sanatana Dharma, uplift the nation, and then he says, take it across to the world. And this is the second work, the mission, Sri Aurobindo's second mission. First mission was to liberate the country. And I'm so happy to see he has fulfilled Sri Krishna's own verdict, command. It is as if Sri Krishna told Sri Aurobindo, first go and liberate your country with the help, with the strength of Sanatana Dharma. And then he says, take this Dharma to the world. And that is why he withdrew to Puducherry, and not as a political recluse, which many people still say that. He didn't run away. Sri Krishna told him, now go to the world. India he tells Sri Aurobindo in Alipur jail that I will take care of this country. You go. You have a different work. So Sri Krishna assures Sri Aurobindo that I will take care of the freedom of the country, now you go. So what more do you want about this person? People still in their ignorance and the political stupidity say Sri Aurobindo ran away from Calcutta to Puducherry. That's what is our ignorance. We have little knowledge, we don't read much. and then we pass judgment, political judgments. Well, whatever it is. This is the second command given by Sri Krishna, that spread this Sanatana Dharma to the world. And that is what all these Aurobindonian centers, individual centers, schools, ashrams, anywhere, we ought to do. To spread this Sanatana Dharma, as explained by Sri Aurobindo, it is 35 volumes, it's not one volume. If you are a man of literature, philosophy, politics, psychology, history, anything. But he has given you an ocean of knowledge. Take it across and live it and read it. We have read so many people, but here I am sure you will never read a person greater in depth and greater in width and greater in heights. So it is a privilege, friends, that we are celebrating today one of those things. Just the other day, 15th of August, his birthday was there. Just the other day, there was Sri Krishna's Janmashtami. So these two people are very close to each other, guiding each other, not each other guiding, but somebody obeying the other person's command, which the person had given long back. Long back. So the tradition from Arjuna to Sri Aurobindo has continued. The Sanatana Dharma has to be maintained, and then wonderfully Sri Krishna says, it is this I have perfected and developed through the rishis, saints and avatars. That's incredible. What Sri Krishna is telling is that this Sanatana Dharma he has perfected and developed through the rishis, saints and avatars. So that is the meaning and value of Sanatana Dharma, friends. It's not just doing a puja or reading an article, no. Sri Krishna says, this is the knowledge I have perfected through saints and avatars. And then tells Sri Aurobindo, now I'll take you out of the jail so that you can go and spread this. So what are we all doing? Sitting here, thinking of somebody, thinking of something. No, in our heart of hearts, love the Mother, Mother India, the Mother, Divine Mother, and let us be grateful to this man at least. Saying that, oh Sri Aurobindo, we are so grateful that you have put in all your force, your strength to liberate this country. Well, there are thousands of people, you will say, no, not only Sri Aurobindo, there are hundreds of people who have done the fine. But this power of knowledge was given by Sri Aurobindo. Before that, there was the power of the Kshatriya. But the knowledge, the direction, the inspiration, they connect with the divinity which Sri Krishna was given by Sri Aurobindo. And that is what he has done. So ultimately, we do nothing but just do a pranam and say, Sri Aurobindo, we are grateful to you for what you have done. Give us the energy, the shakti, the knowledge to take forward this country and your vision. Thank you so much.